Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology, principles, applications. This video is a Q&A video about the solar storms and their connection to things like Earth changes and pole shift and all that kind of stuff. So this is highly unconventional information, of course, and this is based on experimental data, theoretical data, and the revelatory data, as always. So why are there so many severe solar storms? Now, other than the conventional explanation of, we're in a solar cycle and the solar cycle is ramping up and everything, and next year is going to be the peak of it and all that. Other than that, in this model, you would say that what humans have done, and this is primarily due to like over 2,000 nuclear bomb tests that we've done over the last few decades, that we've contaminated this system so extensively in the solar system and beyond. And then with our vortex connection to the sun, so the idea in this model is we have a counter-rotating vortex that goes both ways from the Earth to the sun. All the planets do, and that's part of the gravitational lock that they're in to keep them in the appropriate orbit and everything. But so there's always this transfer of energy and information, if you want to say information, basically resonant energy exchange between the Earth and the sun and through the rest of the solar system, and everything kind of feeds through the sun and then goes out and everything. So, but the idea here is that because the system is so contaminated, there's an additional pressure buildup. And I've talked about this in other videos, how the whole system is geared toward an interdimensional exchange of energy. But when you have molecular structures or energetic structures that are not recognized by the system, it causes pressure to build up in the system. And so you would say in this model that because of the 2,000 plus nuclear tests and the contamination in the system, and plus other things that humanity has done over the last 100 years, like electricity and things, that there's this buildup of pressure. And so when the sun is all part of the same system, and so it exacerbates the natural cycle. So I mean, you could say the graph of the natural cycle's here, but then it's a little higher because of what humanity has done. Now it may only be a small percent, but it's in terms of like what the impact could be on us, that's pretty significant. So we would say that's why the solar storms are severe, even more severe, and getting more severe, and they will continue basically until there's a pole shift. The cycles will be more extreme, and we won't have the down cycles like we typically have in solar storms. So all this is leading up, supposedly to a pole shift, and then the rectification of the system, the cleansing of the system, and everything else. So are solar storms impacting biological life? There's some pretty good data and information out there about this, and how we are constantly being bombarded by solar radiation right now. And then there's extreme things about it. And so there's studies that how it impacts biological life and blood and brain. And so this is obviously a new area of science, conventional science, but from this model's point of view, well, we're talking about an interdimensional exchange of energy and how our DNA is very interdimensionally connected, and it's very dynamic. So you have epigenetic influences. You could say that the solar radiation, the increased solar radiation and the increased solar storms absolutely could have an impact on our DNA, and the epigenetic effects of that are something that we really don't understand at this point. And for all we know, they're part of this ascension evolutionary process we're going through. Are the electrical grids going to fail? I mean, I haven't really been given any clear insights as far as like a cataclysmic, like global grid going down like all over the world from like massive solar radiation like the Carrington event, but we have been given like information about that there could definitely be areas around the globe where where power grids go down, at least temporarily. So I mean, and that's just it. So can neutral magnetic technology handle solar storms? 100%. So this technology and in top secret labs around the world, their technology of this is just going off the charts, because the solar storms actually enhance the performance of the technology. And so it's not only can it handle it, but it performs even better under these circumstances. And so they're definitely seeing an uptick in that. And so it's a kind of a huge deal. Like if society were to transition from electrical to magnetic technology, solar storms, of course, would not be a problem at all. Are solar storms going to trigger a pole shift? I they may be part of that process for sure. They could definitely be influencing the timing of it, influencing the severity of it, and all kinds of things. So I think there's a connection between solar storms and the radiation that we get and the CME impacts on our planet and the pole shift. So there's no doubt that those things are probably connected, especially in this model. They energize the system so severely, and so there's a lot of dynamics happening in terms of vortices going in and out of our planet and how those are impacted by the additional radiation and the additional energy in the system. So are solar storms connected to hurricanes? In this model, they definitely can be. So anything that has the vortex relationship between the ionosphere and the inner Earth grid can be enhanced or exacerbated by hurricanes. And so hurricanes could be more severe due to solar storms. That could include also volcanic activity, earthquake activity, and everything. So yeah, the next question, are they connected to earthquakes and volcanoes? It's all kind of the same process in this. So if you have more energy building up in the system, then you have the events of more energy excursion in the system and the need for the system to have more energetic balancing between the Earth rim and the ionosphere rim. And so that exchange of energy creates tremendous vortices that can make hurricanes stronger, they can make earthquakes more powerful, they can increase volcanic activity and everything. So are you still expecting major Earth changes? If they are going to happen, at least from the information we've been given, they won't really happen until after the pole shift. Ramping up to the pole shift, there could be obviously significant earthquakes and everything, but it's really after the pole shift and after the new magnetic poles are established that there are new energetic excursion points around the world that will basically eventually lead to, in this model at least, and I don't know if this is still for sure going to happen or whatever, but that could and will lead to more extreme Earth changes. But if we have new technology, if we have higher consciousness and everything, I think humanity will be able to cope with those better than they would if we didn't. So are the solar storms going to get worse? I mean, even in the conventional point of view, we're 2025 is kind of the peak of the cycle. From this model's point of view, yeah, they are going to continue to get worse because the system isn't being cleansed at all, and if anything, the contamination is continuing to grow, and we still haven't gone through a pole shift and a rectification of the system. So yeah, in this model, yeah, they could definitely get worse. Should we prepare for solar storms? I mean, that's really up to you and your personal guidance. If you were going to prepare, there's a lot of things that you can do to prepare, and there's tons of great websites on preparation for, solar events or any kind of cataclysmic events or even nuclear war and all those kind of things. But I would say at the very least, having like solar panels and battery backup for those that you have that are not connected to the grid. Okay, so like any of your battery backup panels or solar panels, like you keep them in your garage or you keep them in storage or something, you keep them disconnected from the grid, primarily because if anything were to happen that's extreme to the electrical grid that you are connected to, anything that's connected to the grid or connected to ground could get fried. And so that's like in an extreme solar event. And so the idea is that you have the panels, you have the backup batteries as an emergency only, and you do not connect them to the grid. You do not have them plugged in. They are not connected to ground in any way. So they're essentially safe from the ground currents, because I mean, scientists are measuring ground currents all over the planet right now, and they are so much higher, 100 times higher than they are normally. And so any extreme solar storms can have those get to the point where they start affecting grids. And so you just don't want anything connected to the grid or connected to ground, and then you should be fine. And then you could have some backup solar panels in case your grid goes down. At least then you have some electricity and backup batteries and stuff. Are solar storms creating global warming? I mean, in this model, we don't necessarily really buy into global warming, but we would say that we are buying into global extremes. So this whole idea, this push that there's global warming based on pollution and all that, I wouldn't really buy into that. Now, the idea of the sun and the connection to the earth and the etheric magnetic model and the increased pressure, and like you have tremendous increase in underwater volcanic activity and different things that could increase temperature that way, that I could buy into, you know, from solar radiation and from our connection to the higher pressure in the system. But it's more of the idea of solar extremes. Like we're entering into a phase of absolute solar extremes. So you could have the coldest months on record, the hottest months on record, the worst storms on record, you know. So I mean, it's really solar extremes or global extremes that you could say are really what are happening right now, and not just plain old global warming. Is the solar radiation dangerous? Is there anything we can do to be protected from it? The solar radiation, I mean, the biggest concern that we have and that others have, like in labs around the world, is that the ozone layer is thinner than it's been for, who knows, millions of years. They have no record of how the ozone layer being as thin as it's been due to human activity. It could be millions of years. The magnetic field is weaker than it's been for at least what, like 26,000 years or something. So we have a weak magnetic field. We have the ionosphere is weak, relatively speaking. It's getting bombarded constantly. The ozone layer is thinner than it's been for who knows how long. So the idea of increased radiation is an absolute concern to scientists around the world. I mean, this is a huge deal. And so is there any way to protect from it? I mean, not without a lot of money. I mean, you would need a lot of money and a lot of, I mean, you could do like a lead building or something that you would stay in. So I don't know if there's really any serious way to protect from it if anything severe were to happen. So I think we have to just hope and pray that nothing severe that it happens, because I don't really know if there's any way to protect from it. Maybe like in a submarine in the deepest part of the ocean or in the deepest cave you can possibly imagine, something like that. But I mean, I don't really know if the penetration of that type of radiation can go so deep into the planet. I'm not even really sure those things would help. So are any areas of the planet safer from solar storms? I mean, a lot of this depends on the season, the tilt of the Earth toward the sun, like where you are in hemisphere wise, the timing of the hits of the solar, you know, of the CMEs, like all of that plays an impact on what grids get impacted the most. You could say, as a general rule, scientists might say like near the equator can tend to be more dangerous, simply because the exposure is almost all the time, whereas if you're in the southern or northern hemisphere, depending on your season, you might have at least some advantage because of the tilt of the Earth away from the solar, you know, the solar radiation. But all of that depends on the cloud coming in, the radiation, how it hits the planet, how it hits the magnetosphere, how it's distributed through the ionosphere. So there's so many factors involved. I don't really know if you would say there's, in general, an absolutely safer place to be. So I think this is really coming down to like some serious like guidance, heart meditation, if you want, speaking to your higher guides, your own internal wisdom, your intuition, however you want to do it, prayer. I did just post a video, but it's only going to be in the meditation section on heart projection video, and you can use that simple meditation practice to tune in to your future and tune into where you should be located and things like that. It's exactly designed for that. It's kind of like the holographic heart meditation. So I mean, if you want to check that out, that's cool. I'm just gonna, I don't want to go into keep this too long, so please send in any more questions you have regarding solar storm, solar radiation, and I'll just try to answer them in the comments, and so I don't go on too long with the video. But thank you for sending in questions about this, and I think it's an important dialogue to keep going, and I will see you next time.